Lesson 6.6, Systems of Inequalities. Our essential question is, how do you solve a system of linear inequalities? A system of linear inequalities is our first vocab word, and what that means is that there's more than one inequality. The solution to a system of inequalities is a little bit different than a system of equations. With a system of equations, we were looking for the point where two lines intersected. Now what we're going to look for is we're going to look for the region that is shaded by both inequalities. The systems that we're going to work with today will all have two inequalities. Okay, here's our first example. I'm going to use two different colors for inequalities. So the first inequality that I'm graphing is y is less than 2x plus 2. So I'll start at the y-intercept. Remember, in slope-intercept form, the intercept is b, and that is the starting point for our graph. So the y-intercept is 2, so on the y-axis, I put my first point at 2. Then I use my slope. The slope is the number in front of x, and the slope, remember, is rise over run. So you want your slope to be a fraction. If it's not a fraction, you make it a fraction by putting a 1 under it. So my slope is 2 over 1, so I rise 2, run 1 to the right. Rise 2, run 1. I'm going to keep doing that to cover my grid. And then I need to remind you that the inequality symbol, this inequality symbol is less than, so that means it's going to be dashed and shaded below. Dashed and shaded below. So I'm not going to connect this with a solid line. I'm going to make it a dashed line because the plain symbol, the plain less than symbol without a line under it, tells me that it's a dashed line. And then because it's a less than symbol, I'm going to shade below the line. So below the line would be over here on this side. With your pencil, you can shade lightly, or you could do like horizontal lines or vertical lines. You could do something to shade that side of your graph lightly. And then the second inequality that I'm going to graph starts at -3, so down 3. And then this slope in front of the x is a negative sign, so that means -1 over 1 for my slope. So down 1 over 1 to the right, like this. This symbol, this inequality symbol, is greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to is solid and shaded above. The greater than symbols you shade above, less than you shade below. And then remember the line underneath the symbol right here, that's what makes it a solid line. So there's my boundary line, and greater than I shade above. So if I shade above this line, would be here on this side. And you see how I'm shading the entire side of this line. So our solution to this system of inequalities is the region that is shaded by both of my inequalities. So I shaded the first one with blue, the second one with yellow, and now you can see the whole region that turned green. That's our solution region. So I'm going to name an ordered pair that's in the solution side, so the doubly shaded region. So I'm going to pick this point right here. I went over 4 and up 2. So that's 1 point that's in the solution set. So you graph each of these inequalities. You pay attention to whether you should have a solid or dashed line, and you pay attention to which side is shaded, and you're looking for the region that's shaded by both. What happens when the lines intersect each other is there are 4, they form 4 different pieces. One of them over here is not shaded at all. 2 of them are shaded by one of the inequalities, and then the 4th section is the solution region where it's been shaded by both. Okay, my next one. In blue, I start at my intercept -1 and I go down 2 over 3 because my slope is -2/3. I know that this one is a solid line because the inequality symbol has a line underneath it. So that means it could be equal to the boundary line. And that symbol is a less than or equal to, so I'm going to shade below the line. Remember, you can shade lightly with your pencil. You don't need to shade dark. You don't have to use highlighters like I am. The second line starts at 2, and this one has a slope of 1. So 1 over 1, and it's a dashed line. And it's greater than, so I need to shade above my line. So above the line would be on this side. Again, you can see the area that's shaded twice because it changed colors. So a point that would be in my solution set this time, I can pick a point like maybe this one, and that would be -6, 2. -6, 2. One more example. My first line starts at 5. So +5, and my slope is 1/2. So rise 1, run 2, up 1 over 2. This one would be a dashed line. And it's greater than, so it's shaded above. Then my second one starts at -3, and it also goes up 1 over 2, so it's parallel to my first line. It's a solid line this time, and it's less than or equal to, so that means that it's shaded below the line like this. So on this example, what happens is there is not an area that's shaded twice. So if there isn't an area shaded twice, that's an empty set. There's no solution to this system of inequalities. There aren't any points that are shaded by both of those inequalities that would make them true. And our last example We have some parallel lines again. So -1 is my intercept, and I go down 3/1. We're going to see if the same thing happens. We're going to see if it's always an empty set. So this one's a solid line. And it's greater than or equal to. So I shade above the line. Okay, and my second one, I start at +2, so up here, and it also goes down 3/1. So this line is really close to my other one. It's going to be dashed this time though. And this one is less than, so it's shaded below. So if I shade below that line, I get this little tiny area, this little tiny area between them that's green. So picking an ordered pair this time is pretty tricky. My lines aren't exactly the straightest, but I'm going to say I've got a point right here that looks good to me. So 0, 1, this point right here. And there are some other ones that you can see. It's just a little bit tricky because the shady region is tiny, the part that's shaded twice. So when the lines are parallel, sometimes it's no solution, but sometimes they do overlap. It just depends on which side you're shading for each of your lines. You should be able to write a summary now that answers the essential question. Make sure that you use complete sentences.